Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you so much for being here. This is Silver Slayer. An article came out today, maybe tomorrow for you, depending on when I post this video, August 9th, talking about why the Fed could send gold and silver to record highs. Now, this is particularly interesting because I interviewed Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin. That's the company that got the $50 million order from that lady in Texas that's a billionaire that purchased 900,000 eagles, over 100,000 ounces of constitutional silver and gold. I wanted to break that story and I got the first-hand scoop. If you want to go check that interview out, I highly recommend it. But the point is that I was telling him that I think triple-digit silver would hit around the year 2025, 2026, and he said a lot sooner. And it's interesting because we came from two different angles, and I think that's also it really showcases how much potential silver has and why it's the best investment. Because I came from the angle of the silver shortage. You know, the Green New Deal by the year 2025, 2026, it will be blatantly obvious that there's a huge supply deficit we won't be able to fill. There's going to be a huge mess with the COMEX vault already, becoming emptied. And he said, yes, I agree with everything you said, but on top of that, he goes into the US dollar, the world's reserve currency, countries pulling away from it, and this whole thing. I also posted a snippet, a clip from his response. I highly recommend you go check that out as well, because oh my gosh, did he get into some deep stuff that was just some of the best content I've ever posted on my channel. But regardless, it was just interesting because we're talking about silver exploding, and now we got an interview coming out today that's talking about why, from the dollar perspective, not the silver shortage perspective, that would push silver higher. So the link to this article will be in the description. Obviously, from the intro, it's going to be a good video, so stick around. I'd love for you all to participate in the comment section as well. I think this is going to be a great video, so let's talk silver. Gold has proved resilient amid the inflation crisis of 2022 as equities, bonds, and cryptos sank. In a high volatility environment, the MSCI World Index lost more than 20% over the first 6 months of the year in US dollar terms, and investors have been seeking less risky assets than equities. Traditionally, a safe haven, gold peaked in March. Its price fell but continued to hold firm for UK investors since, as shown in the graph below. So this is a graph showing gold versus global stocks over the last year. So you could August 2021 to August 2022. The gold is the S&P gold spot, and the blue is the world, is the MSCI world. So you can see that it's similar, but then there's also parts where they detach. It's so funny, and this reminds me kind of like the dollar index nowadays, where the dollar index and silver are they're negatively correlated. When the dollar index is high, silver is low, vice versa. But then recently we'll see like the dollar index and silver moving higher together. Times are just kind of very messy and very unpredictable, to say the least. But anyways, Bullion Vault Director of Research Adrian Ash highlighted how physical bullion was the best performing asset during the initial deflationary wave of the crisis, when crude oil prices dropped below zero, and how it has now outperformed all major asset classes except crude oil as inflation jumps over 40-year highs. So although the rise in interest rates does present a headwind to gold prices, as the metal pays no income, Ash believes that its success in 2022 so far is likely to attract fresh inflows if the slump in world stock markets continue in the second half of the year, which I could definitely agree. And when I'm looking at this, I'm going to try to compare silver more so to gold, even than the dollar, because you could see right here as well, the gold to silver ratio is heading lower. That means that silver is outperforming gold. If the ratio is going higher, that means that gold's outperforming silver. When the ratio drops, that means that silver is outperforming gold. So I really want to pay close attention to this as well, because you all know that I believe one day silver is going to break away from gold, take on a life of its own. Regardless of what gold's doing, silver's going to do its own thing. And that could even be detached from stock market volatility, cryptos, and even the dollar index itself. So anyways, moreover, the risk of recession becoming longer-term stagflation is likely to see portfolio managers and other existing investors continue to hold tight to gold as a form of insurance. Ned Naylor, manager of the $838 million Jupiter Capital Gold and Silver Fund, agreed and went further to predict a rebound in gold prices should the U.S. Federal Reserve ease off its current hawkish path. Many economists are already taking a recession for granted, as they believe the Fed is likely to increase interest rates and step too far, over-tightening market conditions and weakening the economy. This, I mean, 1 + 1 = 2. Do you really think times are going to? I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, or something along those lines. As falling real yields mean a higher gold price. Gold and silver are bets that future real rates are not going to rise as much as the market thinks, because the Fed won't be able to pull it off. In a scenario with a weak economy bordering a recession, further rate hikes could become too painful and result in rate expectations dissolving and the yield curve more quickly than inflation expectations. A hard landing or recession won't necessarily make inflation go away. Think about stagflation. On the other hand, rate hike expectations would disappear pretty quickly, in my opinion. That would be good for gold and silver. And that was from Leyland. So gold is trading around $1,700 an ounce and going to get to $2,100. And that's, gold broke past its all-time highs in 2020, broke past $2,000 an ounce. We'll be reading about that in history books, and more so because the gold to silver ratio is 125 to 1. And I don't think that will ever happen again, simply because that meant that silver was 125 times less valuable than gold, which is so incredibly insane, since silver is actually more valuable than gold. If you want to be realistic, that ratio makes more sense flipped in silver being 125 times more valuable. But anyways, talking about how gold broke past $2,100, or will, as it was in March of 2020, and that's when silver was $11. It would again be challenging, and that wasn't the exact period, but silver was $11 in March 2020, and gold, was breaking past all-time highs the similar time frame. So it would again be challenging. And by the way, just to branch off, when gold was breaking its all-time highs, silver was only like $23, half of its all-time high. So, when you're looking at the gold to silver ratio being 125 to 1, gold breaking past record highs, silver only doing half, I compare it to a volcano. Gold's volcano back then already erupted. It exploded. Silver's volcano, though, since silver does follow gold and gold broke past record highs, silver's volcano hasn't exploded yet. Magma's still building up inside, but when it does explode, it's going to be astronomical. It would again be challenging, and by the way, let me pause right there. It would be even more so astronomical and more dramatic because silver's more volatile than gold. If gold's going to rise 10%, silver's going to rise 15% because it's a much smaller market. That could also work for the negative, though. If gold's going to drop 10%, silver's going to drop 15%, like we've seen lately. But regardless, that volcano metaphor, that analogy, it's something you really got to pay attention to. So it would be, again, challenging the inflation-adjusted all-time high. I think that gold has a very good chance of breaking through $2,100, that record. Records are made to be broken, and dollar strength will not last forever. And that's the main thing I try to tell people. People freak out when the dollar starts strengthening and silver will be down. They're like, oh man, silver's dropping. What do I do? It's like, by next week, next month, especially next year, the next couple of years, things are going to be very bad for the dollar. So why would you, even though it's strengthening right now, that means absolutely nothing. Gold and silver are going to be worth the same as it always has and will be and continue to be, because the value of that silver isn't the price tag attached to it, it's the 1 ounce inside of it. The price tag is irrelevant. Spot price is irrelevant. You cannot compare fake money to real money. No amount of dollars will ever equal silver, an ounce of silver, because a dollar doesn't have value. It's a promissory note, but that 1 ounce of silver is valuable in terms it has critical uses. What's the dollar useful for besides wiping your ass if you run out of toilet paper? Anyways, so yeah, looking ahead, I think the conditions are right for a move back to a more dovish environment and a Fed pivot. That's why I believe it's the perfect time for prudent investors to own gold and silver. This is an especially good entry point for investors as participation in the gold market is at historic lows. And I mean, don't really look at the gold market at historic lows. Even look at the gold to silver ratio. When the gold to silver ratio is quote unquote average, they say around like 65 to 1, maybe 70 to 1. That's still extremely high since we know that silver is actually more useful than gold. And for thousands and thousands of years, the ratio has been 8 to 1 because that's the rate it comes out of the ground. So if we know that, and we see the ratio at 90 to 1, 80 something to 1, that means that gold is overvalued or silver is undervalued. Now, as an investor, why would you invest into something that's overvalued? That means it's over the value of what it should be. Silver's undervalued. It's under the value of what it should be. So as an investor, rationally thinking, you would invest into the thing that's underpriced because that means it will go up to its actual value. Gold, more so, is overvalued if you want to look at it that way. It's over the value of what it should be. And that's just comparing those two metals together. Not saying that gold's overvalued. I'm saying compared to silver, gold is overvalued. And that's the thing I don't think a lot of people realize. I'm not saying gold's overvalued at $2,000. I'm saying gold, comparing it to silver, gold is overvalued. Gold is way overvalued compared to what silver is, since you're comparing just those two metals alone. Silver, the gold to silver ratio used to be actually 2.5 to 1. 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold. That was back in biblical times, ancient times, when silver was magical, because silver can purify water. Silver has antimicrobial properties. You drop silver in milk, it keeps the milk fresh longer. There's colloidal silver. Silver is used in medical wall paint. It's used for masks for this virus. It's used in everything. It's used in everything and anything you can think of, not just technology. So, but what is gold used for? Gold is used for necklaces and jewelry. Watches, earrings, bars, and coins. It just sits in vaults, determining a country's wealth. But silver's out here with real world uses and a shortening supply. So in my opinion, silver is a no-brainer. Yes, gold is still great to invest in. Very easy. It's not as risky as silver, but in my opinion, it's blatantly obvious that silver is a better investment. So yes, we saw the gold to silver ratio peak during the situation. It was 125 to 1. Over the past 5 years, gold consolidated from 2017 through the situation. This consolidation is prompting an extreme high in the gold to silver ratio to levels above 1.2. Other time in history, it was above that was 1991, 1992. I don't know if they mean like 1 to 2, meaning like 100 to 1. I'm assuming they mean 100 to 1 by that, 1.2. Let me see something. Yeah, they're determining it like that because you could see in 2020 when the ratio was 125 to 1. You could see that was the highest the ratio's ever been since the beginning of man. That means that was the most that was the lowest silver's ever been compared to gold. That was the cheapest silver's ever been compared to gold, and rightfully so. I mean, so anyways, they're talking about how that situation was similar to the fall of the Soviet Union. Then the dot-com bubble burst. The 9/11 stuff rattled global financial markets. Fear in precious metals suddenly became into focus again. That's obvious. But they're looking more so into gold, but I still think that silver. Here, let me read it. Okay, so overall, he says he believes global currencies will continue to recoil because of the risk devaluation factors related to inflation and disruptions within the global economy, very similar to the end of the Soviet Union in 1991. My thinking is that gold will attempt to hold above 1700 as a base support level, while silver attempts to hold above $19. Any major crisis event, war on global financial meltdown, may prompt a retest of these base support levels within the next 12 months or so. He says, what do we expect in the future? And that's if the gold to silver ratio is repeating a 2002-2003 setup. If the breakout trend starts in gold, which could happen as early as 2023, 2024, I believe the next rally target for gold will be somewhere above 3,100, and then a dedicated climb to levels above 4,500. And this is interesting. Let me bust out my calculator, because let's say that gold does go to 3,100 and the gold to silver ratio, 3,100, and then the gold to silver ratio is what should we do, like 70 to 1? So 3,100, the gold to silver ratio 71, that puts silver at $44. But let's say it goes, and by then I feel like silver, the gold to silver ratio could be much lower. And it better be, if gold's that high, if gold's at let's do 4,500, and let's be realistic. Let's say 4,500, and the ratio's down to 16 to 1. That's $281 silver. I say 16 to 1 because that's what the ratio was until it was man-made, manipulated from FDR in 1930. The ratio was 16 to 1. 16 to 1 for hundreds of years until FDR got in office in 1930 and changed it from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1. But also remember what happened in 1930. He confiscated everyone's gold. Confiscated everyone's gold. Set a price. Said you have to turn in all of your gold or you're going to spend 10 years in prison or a $10,000 fine, or both. Executive Order 6102, FDR 1930, that's when the gold to silver ratio changed from 16 to 1 to 75 to 1, single-handedly devalued silver overnight. That is a man-made ratio, and if it does go back to natural levels, then we would see it back down to there, maybe even lower. What if it goes down to the ratio it comes out of the ground? So anyways, yeah, what do you think about this? Let me know what you think about gold to silver. Like I said, I think silver is going to take on a life of its own. Regardless, the whole point of this video, though, is that we could see record-breaking gold and silver highs. And if gold's going to break above its record high, especially twice before silver does, I can't imagine what silver's explosive potential really has. Like I said, go check out the interview I did with Andy Sheckman, or at least go check out the video I just posted where he talks about why triple-digit silver would be sooner than what I said would be 2025, 2026. I'm going to wrap this video up here. Link to this article will be in the description as always. Thanks for tuning in. If you thought the video was likable, if you liked the video, please like the video. If you thought my channel is worthy of a subscription, please subscribe. I never ask you to like the video and subscribe in the beginning of the video because you don't even know if you're going to like the video yet. Why would I ask you 10 seconds in, like every other channel does, to like the video? You don't even know if you're going to like the video, so why would I ask you to like it? Why would I don't get that. And now, since you actually know my content, if you think you would like to see more of this, then please subscribe and click the bell because I post daily. Lots of very good stuff coming up. My channel has been doing better than it ever has since 2015, July 4th, 2015 when I started it. I'm more motivated than ever. Bigger and bigger things are coming. I'm doing a huge giveaway, silver giveaway, when I hit 60,000 subscribers. And yes, that sounds far away, but at this rate, it's not going to be too far away. So make sure you click the bell so you don't miss the entry video that I'll also be posting soon. So anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.